Big Mountain was 3-1 on locks and 9-6 overall. Let's see how we got there.
Week 7 is in the books, and we're back on the Big Mountain, where we bring you a detailed focus on the Big Ten and the Mountain West.
I'm JY, this is my good friend Steve, and we're going to do a summary of our Week 7 picks, a rapid reaction as we call it. 3-1 on the locks, really strong week, and 9-6 overall. So had a couple mediocre weeks here after a really hot 2 and 3. But here we are sitting, hopefully winning money again for some of our viewers. So let's start with you, Steve. How'd your locks go? And you can go into whatever games you want.
Yeah, let's go right into it. So I was 1-1 on my locks this week. Took my first Big Ten loss on locks of the season. Maryland let me down, but let's just go down through them. So first of all, I took Rutgers to cover 5.5. They did win against Michigan State at home, and they had the ball late with a chance to kick a field goal. But obviously their coach is not worried about the point spread. He wants to get the win, so they were able to run the clock out instead.
Right.
They won by 3, so that was a miss for us. They just missed on covering. Ohio State at Purdue. Ohio State, I took Ohio State minus 19.5.
Yep.
I think that was one of my locks.
That was a lock.
Okay, yeah, I didn't write it down here. So that was a lock. Ohio State minus 19.5. I really thought that their passing game would come alive. The running game, Ohio State still has not been able to get their running game going. Their offensive line is not great this year. It's probably like a 2-level downgrade from most years.
Right.
Both of their top 2 running backs have been hurt, and I believe neither one played in this game. But the Purdue defense, they're just not what they were last year. Their secondary is just not good. And so Ohio State easily covered that, won by 34.
Yeah.
So that was an easy lock. We were surprised by the point spread, and that's what made it such an easy one to lock.
Right.
And they easily covered that, almost doubled the points.
Well, their big test is this coming week.
Absolutely, yes.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Penn State will travel to Columbus for a Scarlet Out game, I think they're calling it.
Okay.
Yeah, big noon kickoff.
All right.
And I'm sure we're going to get into that game in our picks episode for this coming week.
Yep.
Okay, so my next one, I really thought about locking Michigan. We've talked about Michigan over and over. The first 4 weeks of the season, we picked them not to cover.
Yep.
They just had that sluggish start. They were sleepwalking. And we identified when that changed, when that turned after Harbaugh came back, and now they're putting the punishment on people.
Yes,
they're out there to show. I mean, their schedule's still soft, pretty easy. So they were 33.5 point favorites against Indiana and end up winning by 45. Indiana actually came out and took the lead at the beginning, 7-0, and that just seemed to piss Michigan off, and they just smashed them, demolished them. In every facet of the game, J.J. McCarthy looks like he could be maybe the best quarterback. I know you've been on him high all year.
Fantastic.
He looks like he could be the best quarterback in the country this year, potentially. I'm kind of surprised no one's talked about him in the Heisman Trophy race.
Yeah.
He was fantastic. They easily won by 45.
And I got to be honest, we just did a power ranking, our first update.
Yeah. Power
rankings. If you're interested in that, take a look at our channel. But to me, Michigan is the number 1 team in all of college football right now. I question why. I mean, look at what Georgia did the past few weeks. They squeaked by Auburn, and even this last week, it wasn't a blowout win in any stretch of the imagination. And Michigan is just rolling right now. I question how Michigan is not number 1 overall. I know there's SEC love out there, but I just don't get it. They should be number 1 in the poll, in my opinion. But I think they'll get there. I think they'll get there.
I mean, I definitely see your point. Georgia has not impressed this year. They kind of, same thing, sleepwalked through their early soft schedule. But where Michigan has turned it on, Georgia turned it on one game against Kentucky, and then they just kind of went back to the same old. And I don't know if you saw their tight end. I think his name's Brock Bowers. But he was like a dark horse Heisman candidate. High ankle sprain. Actually, it's so bad he has to have surgery. I think he's out for either 4 to 6 or 6 to 8 weeks. So that's definitely an opportunity for Michigan to take that number 1 spot. We'll see next week. We're going to do the power rankings. I have 1 or 2 teams that I think could be there just in the Big Ten and within our power rankings group that maybe could pass Michigan. But I definitely see your point.
If we're just basing it on this season, I have no idea how they're not number 1. That's all I'm saying.
Totally
understand. 7 weeks, number one college football team, in my opinion. But
totally
I'm one
get
guy
that.
that's doing a podcast,
And-
so
and
my,
I thought-
my vote don't count.
And like I told you off the air, I thought about locking them this week, but that
Yeah.
huge point spread, 33.5, and I should have done it. They easily covered that. So my next one, this is my disappointment. So, at the beginning of the season, I told everyone Maryland was going to start the season 5-0, and they'd be the worst 5-0 team in the country, and they would come back to earth. Well, Maryland impressed me through that 5-0 run. I thought they looked even better than I thought they were going to be.
Right.
And so they lost to Ohio State.
Almost beat the spread, though.
Almost beat the
Almost
spread.
beat the spread.
Almost beat the spread, and played a good game, good first half against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Well, this week they just laid an egg. They were 13.5-point favorites over Illinois. I took that as a lock. I took that as a bounce back game. I thought they would easily come back. And Illinois just had not been good this year. However, Illinois was good in this game. I am starting to see that defense that I thought we would see this year out of Illinois. They really held Maryland in check, and Maryland lost this game outright.
Yeah.
So that was a bad call on me on that lock. That's my first Big Ten lock that was a bust this year. So sorry if you took that one. I didn't see that coming out of Maryland right now, which I should have maybe went back to my preseason preview on Maryland.
But that's Monday
Exactly.
Monday morning quarterbacking.
Yeah.
And Maryland has done you very, very well. So,
They have, yes.
you're not going to win them all,
Right.
And you've been hitting them pretty hard, so you're bound to lose one with them. So I wouldn't take it too seriously.
Okay, so the next game, I was at this game, UMass at Penn State, huge point spread, 42.5. I told our viewers to just be careful on that game, be careful of the weather, wait and look at the weather reports on maybe Friday or even Saturday morning before they took that game. I was at the game, rained all day, but as I was telling you before we started recording, right as game time started, the rain basically stopped, kind of turned into just a light mist.
Yeah.
The field was in great condition. Didn't slow Penn State down at all. Penn State just rolled every facet of the game, just destroyed UMass, what they should do.
Yeah.
42.5-point spread. Penn State easily covered that, won by 63, and which is what great teams should do to bad teams.
Yes.
So they did it. They covered. So I hope you ended up taking them, maybe as a game day pick or something once you saw the weather. So they covered again. I think that's eight, maybe 8 in a row for Penn State and covering the point spread dating back to last year.
Yeah.
8 or 9 in a row. So great cover for them.
And I was actually looking at taking the under in that game because I knew A, weather was questionable, and B, I didn't expect UMass to score much, and they didn't score any.
Right.
And so I'm like, ooh, that's a lot of points if Penn State's not, they're not going to, depending on both weather and how much they're really going to push the envelope this week.
Yeah.
So I didn't bet it, but I was really thinking about the game under there, and I'm glad I didn't take it because Penn State didn't care. They rolled right through.
Yeah, I think the over under was around maybe 52.
Yeah,
or
I think it was 52.5. Yeah.
And Penn State blew that out of the water by 10 points just on their own.
Yep.
Now they were helped. They had 2 punt returns. Daquan Hardy, first Penn State player in history to have 2 punt returns for touchdown in one game. That's always nice for your points.
That helps.
Yes. Okay, so I saved the best for last, the juggernaut that is the Iowa offense. So I took them. I told you I thought this would be a low-scoring game. Iowa offense is terrible. It may be the worst offense in the entire country.
Yeah.
It's just awful.
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier. They have to average 25 points a game to save Brian Ferentz's job as offensive coordinator, son of the head coach. We were tracking that for a while. To me, it doesn't even. I think from here on out, now they got to average like 30-something points to keep up with that.
Yeah, it's done.
Little to no
chance.
It's
a done deal.
Yeah. However, they got the straight up win. Not only did they cover that 9.5 points, they got the straight up win. They are in the driver's seat. Wisconsin, Wisconsin was 9.5 point favorites. It was at Camp Randall, in Wisconsin, in Madison. And so not only did Iowa cover that point spread, their defense, their special teams, they did get a long rushing touchdown, I think, right at the beginning of the game. They won straight up, and they're in the driver's seat to win the Big Ten West now.
Yep.
I had Wisconsin as my favorite, but I had Iowa kind of like one step behind them in preseason.
Yeah.
Because of that defense, and really they might be the bottom 10 defense in all of Power 5, or bottom 10 offense in all of Power 5,
right?
But top 10 defense in all of Power 5, maybe.
Yeah.
Because their defense is just strong. And so they got the straight up win. So good for them. That was another win for us. So I was 4-2 on the week.
Yep.
1-1 on my locks.
Yep.
Good week in the Big Ten. Looking forward to next week. That's all I got, JY. What, you want to give us an update
Yeah,
on
we'll go over mine, and we'll do the slides at the end, showing both this week and overall. But I know you had your first Big Ten lock loss, but this guy's 8-2 on lock, so I'm not sure there's much to be upset about here. But let's get into some Mountain West games. I'm not going to go through everything here, but we'll start with my locks. First lock was the San Diego State game. They went out to Hawaii. Frankly, a closer game than I thought it was going to be. And, I mentioned the only way they don't cover this is because they're doing too much partying and hula. And I don't think that was the case. Hawaii came to play. Hawaii's offense. San Diego State, I still say they have a decent defense. I don't think it's as good of a defense as we thought it was coming into the season.
Right.
But Hawaii scored points here. More, San Diego scored the points I thought they would. I think the difference there was a lot more points for Hawaii. They were throwing the ball around really well. Being on the East Coast, didn't watch the entire game, but I did watch the first half to 3/4 of this game, and I was impressed by Hawaii's offense here. Really good passing game. So we got the win there with that lock. It was a -6, and they covered by the touchdown. But honestly, I was a little surprised by that. I thought they would win by more than a touchdown, so I'll give props to the Rainbow Warriors there for that game. It was a good game for them.
I saw the score. I was surprised I didn't see any of the game, but good lock win for you.
Yeah, the other one was the Washington. I had to go to Washington and Oregon, and I watched the first half and some of the second half. I was trying to watch the end of the game. I was at a hockey game with my son, and so I was peeking at the TV and watching all of it. And let me just tell you, this was an awesome game to watch. Just back and forth. Just when you think Washington's going to take over, Oregon comes back, and then at the end, Oregon's in control, and then Washington scores that touchdown, and was it 2 plays or something ridiculous? I mean, and it's exactly what I said. If I'm taking two teams that have great offenses, I'm going to take the team that I think can score just a little bit more, and that's Michael Penix. But let me tell you, his receivers, he's a great quarterback.
He's got 3.
Oh
NFL
my
receivers,
gosh.
yes.
I should have written the guys, Odunke or something like that. The dude is a stud.
Yes.
He just chucks that dude the ball, and he can catch anything.
Yes.
Like, props to Penix, but I was completely impressed by the receiving core out there. Unbelievable.
And the Oregon secondary had those guys covered. Penix was making those throws into tough spots, and receivers were catching them, making big plays.
Stretch out in the hands, boom, bringing it in. I mean, it is the stuff of top 2, 3, 4 teams in the country. That's what they're made of. I mean, it lived up to the billing.
Yes.
And I hope you guys took it at 2.5, because that was my pick.
Yeah.
It actually went to 3.5 on game day. And you sent me something saying about how Oregon's now, I think, 6-0 or something like that this season against the spread. Well, they are if you took the spread on game day, which is what that would have gone against. But if you took it when I locked it, hopefully you did, you got the win at the -2.5.
Can I just say on that game, so I listened on the radio on the way back from the Penn State game, most of the second half. Just absolutely compelling game. Just amazing to listen on the radio. And then when I got back, I was able to watch some extended highlights. And I agree with everything you said. These might be 2 of the top 5 teams in the country. I wouldn't be surprised to see them match up again in the Pac-12 championship game. And honestly, for my money, I actually have Washington as the best offense in the country.
Yeah.
That Penix with those wide receivers, they get enough contributions out of the running game. And to me, Oklahoma has a good win over Texas. There's some other wins out there. Texas has a good win over Alabama. But for Washington, beating Oregon, to me, nobody else has a win this season that's better than that.
Yep.
2 really good teams. And that'll kind of play into where maybe next week, there's still a whole other week of games, but next week when we get into our power rankings, I see Washington, and you have Michigan as a clear cut, and I totally understand that. And for me, I've got Michigan and Washington as my 2 right up there.
Clearly the top 2 in the power rankings we do.
Yeah.
And we said that in the last one. To me, there's a clear 1 and 2, and it's Washington and Michigan, and then you get into your 3, 4, 5. But you mentioned about Oregon's, and I just want to mention this real quick. I know it's not a summary video on this game, but you mentioned about Oregon's defense, and by the end of the game, they got to Penix so much.
Yes,
I mean, I was slightly concerned whether or not he was going to continue. Now, he's a lefty, and he was really holding his right arm. Man, to me, it looked almost rib-like. I don't know if it was shoulder or rib. I'm not sure. But he was feeling it. Like, I guarantee you, he woke up Sunday morning in some soreness and pain. So
Penix, absolute warrior. As a Penn State fan, I'm still a little salty. A couple years back, 2020, he was at Indiana. There was that play at the end where he made the diving play. I still say he was short, but it was called a touchdown, or maybe it was a 2-point conversion. I can't remember. He was called in, got the points, got the win. And I've been telling you all season, I thought he would be a Heisman Trophy candidate this year.
Yep.
And I honestly didn't think that he would win, because playing out west, I think I might have said that, playing out west on the West Coast, but he would be in the conversation. Honestly, now I have him as my front runner for the Heisman. With that win, there's no other player. This has kind of become a quarterback award a little bit. And there's no other quarterback. There's no other college player that has led his team to a victory like that one over Oregon.
Phenomenal. So let's get to some of the Mountain West games here. Fresno, I had taken them. They did not have Keene, but backup Fife did fine. They won the game. They didn't beat the spread. But that was a tough game. I knew it would be going in. And honestly, it shows you they have two quarterbacks.
Yes.
You know, I know everybody was very worried about Keene. And I actually think that spread got all the way down to 4.5 at game time. Yeah. So unlike the Washington game, if you took it when I said, you were a winner. If you waited on the Fresno game and took it at the very late, you actually could have been a winner here. Yeah. I had it at 6.5. Obviously, didn't cover that. But happy for Fresno that they kind of got the bounce back. But it was a very good game. I'm glad it was on Friday night. I got to watch most of it. So that was a good game. Let's get to Wyoming. And another game where we were wondering about Whaley and whether or not he was going to play. I thought he was going to play this game.
The coaches' comments
from what the coaches. I mean, you can't say trust any of that.
Yeah.
But I was 50-50 on Keene, probably hedging more towards he wouldn't play. But I thought for sure Whaley was going to play this game. Didn't play at all.
Yeah.
And what a game against Air Force. I mean, Air Force is legit, but Wyoming is legit.
Yep.
You know, it was a 1-touchdown game. Didn't go the Pokes way. It went to the Falcons. They're now sitting undefeated in the driver's seat for the conference, at least to get to the conference championship game. I would love to see these teams. Sorry, dog fans. Yeah. I would love to see a Wyoming Air Force rematch in the Mountain West championship game. I think it could be fantastic.
Totally agree with you. Air Force, they're in the driver's seat. I think they're in the driver's seat. Well, they're definitely in the driver's seat to get to the championship game, like you mentioned. Yeah. Possibly even a New Year's Six Bowl.
They're in it. They should be in it right now. Yeah. So if they run the table, which they can do.
They're ranked. What are they ranked now?
22nd.
22nd in the AP rankings. They could easily get up in the top 20.
Absolutely.
They only have to be in the top 25 as a Mountain West champion. Really good chance, driver's seat for a New Year's Six Bowl. Yep. Now, this all comes back to, and honestly, I watched a good part of the second half of that game, and Wyoming went toe to toe with Air Force. For sure. I mean, they had the lead. You know, maybe got burned out a little bit, run down a little bit towards the end. It's hard when you're defending against Air Force to keep running the ball, keep running the ball. But they were right there with them, went toe to toe with them. It was a great game, and it all comes back to what I said is Wyoming is probably in the top 2 of the conference. I think they kind of showed that last night.
I think so.
However, they have that hard schedule, and Fresno has the easier draw. And Wyoming had the much harder draw this year. They got to play all the big boys.
Right.
So we'll see. I think that would be a good rematch. But you almost think that they're going to need Fresno maybe to stumble. Because
they got the head-to-head. They got the head-to-head.
They do have the head-to-head.
So
they do.
It could easily come down to the head-to-head at this point. I will say Wyo's first half, again, just like the Fresno game, they came out slinging it. Peasley with another great first half. I mean, 2 back-to-back games that you've got to come and perform, and Peasley and the offense, they do it in both games. So props to them. They did actually knock out the Larimer, the starting quarterback for Air Force, which to me, and then the backup comes in and fumbles twice, and it's to me it's looking great. Then they run that triple option. Eldridge just finds that hole and he goes, I don't know what it was, 60 yards or something like that. But anyway,
it was down. That's
great game.
At least the second time this year they knocked out the starting quarterback, maybe third time because they knocked out Keene towards the end of that game.
They did. Keene left at the end of the game.
At least the third time this season they've knocked the starting quarterback out. That goes back to the just an amazing defense, and their defense is actually part of their offense.
Yes, for sure. Yep. So let's talk about, since we're talking about Wyoming, and their schedule. They have a bye week, and then they get Boise. Let's talk about Boise.
Yeah.
What the heck
Crazy
happened?
game.
It's the end of the game. I'm flipping. I'm watching some of the Hawaii San Diego State game because that was a lock game for me. So Boise seems to be in control. So I'm over watching that game, and I turn it off. I'm going to bed, and I text you in the morning. Oh, look, we're 10-5. And then I look and I go, Boise lost the damn game, so I got to pull up the daggone ending, which I sent to you.
Yes.
Just silly, crazy college football ending.
Yes.
Forget the spread. They lose the damn game to Colorado State.
Yes.
So I don't even know what to say about this game. Boise is at this point they're out of the championship game.
Yeah.
I mean, unless a miracle happens and both Fresno and Wyoming blow up here, which I don't see happening. I mean, it's a 3-team race in the Mountain West right now. It's Wyoming, Air Force, and Fresno, and the only one that maybe, if they can keep going and pulling some upsets, and we're gonna get to this team next, is UNLV.
Yeah, I saw there were some probabilities that put out, and they're either third or fourth percentage-wise probability that could win the Mountain West.
Yeah. So
I just want to say real quick. JY sent me the video of the end of that game, the Boise game in Colorado State. I watched it twice. The first time, I was just like, I don't even know what just happened. How did that happen? Second time through, I watched it, and I was thinking in my mind, maybe they win this time. Because it was just such a crazy ending to that game.
It was crazy. Totally crazy. And the funny thing, I don't know how I feel about this. The second onside kick is a penalty for the kicking team because they touch it illegal,
and
then they get to do it again.
Yes.
That doesn't seem right to me. You were illegally touching the ball. I don't know how they get to re-kick that, but I guess clearly that's the rule, but that just doesn't make sense.
Basically, because they recovered it, so the other team has the chance to either just take the results of the play, which they wouldn't, or make them re-kick.
So true, I get that. So it's like any penalty, you can either accept or decline. So that makes sense, but it just seems odd that they get to try the crazy thing again. But anyway, so the last two I'll just really quickly hit on. I took Ohio, and they crapped the bed against Northern Illinois. Lost the game straight up. Again, I was very surprised by that. I was fairly big on that Ohio Bobcat game. They didn't come through. And then I took the Lobos, which I don't know why, but I felt good about them. Their offense was doing decent. I was getting 8.5, and San Jose State's offense showed me why in the beginning of the season I liked San Jose State's offense. Yeah. They went off the freaking chain.
Yes.
So 2 losses there with Ohio and with the Lobos. Probably won't be picking the Lobos ever again this year, but you never know.
Have they won for you? That's like, that's second or third time?
No, don't get them confused with New Mexico State. Okay. Don't get confused.
Okay.
So anyway, that was it for me.
Let's just stay out of the state of New Mexico.
Well, I don't. I think I might be 1-3 when I'm picking either the New Mexico State Aggies or New Mexico Lobos. I think I'm 1-3 against them. So I may take your advice. Hey, let's do our summary slides here quick. We'll go over this week results, and we're going to show you our cumulative results for the entire season so far. All right, and that's where we sit. We are over 500 on both locks, well over 500 in locks, and overall picks. We have our next pick episode coming out on Thursday morning, so it'll drop here in a couple days. Make sure you subscribe, turn on your notifications so you can get those in. As you can see, we take these lines. Usually we'll look at them on Wednesdays. That's typically the lines that we're going to do for our videos, or Wednesday lines, and they do change. So, hey, with that, we appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time on the Big Mountain.